What if the greatest deception of all time is unfolding right before our eyes, hidden in plain sight? The figure of the Antichrist, once thought to be a mythical character from ancient prophecies, might not be as far away as we think. Throughout history, this final deceiver has been foretold to rise, influencing the masses with lies, manipulation, and false promises. But what if we're already living in an era where the signs are clear, yet we're too blind to see them? In today's world, where truth is often distorted and power plays behind the scenes, the Antichrist's influence may not look like the one-dimensional villain we've been taught to expect. It could be more subtle, more integrated into our daily lives, and perhaps most unsettling of all, more aligned with the systems we trust the most. Politics, technology, media, are they all paving the way for a new kind of deception, one that leads straight to the rise of the Antichrist? This video will dive into the heart of this modern myth and reveal how the traits of the Antichrist can be traced in the very structures that dominate our world today. From the power-hungry leaders who manipulate society to the digital age that's rewriting the rules of truth and control, we'll uncover the signs of the final deceiver and how they are making their presence known. Whether you believe in ancient prophecies or not, one thing is certain: the world as we know it is changing, and the Antichrist may be closer than we think. Are you ready to see the truth behind the mask? The concept of the Antichrist has deep roots in religious, cultural, and historical contexts, particularly within Christian eschatology, but its influence stretches across various belief systems and civilization. To understand the Antichrist's role in modern society, it's essential to look at how this figure evolved through history and religious texts. In Christian tradition, the term Antichrist originates from the New Testament, particularly from the epistles of John. The Apostle John warned early Christians about many antichrists who would come to deceive the faithful, teaching false doctrines and attempting to distort the message of Christ. However, it is the book of Revelation, also known as the Apocalypse, that provides the most vivid image of the Antichrist. Though the term itself does not appear there, Revelation speaks of a beast that rises from the sea, wielding power, demanding worship, and deceiving the nation. This figure has long been associated with the Antichrist, who is thought to embody the ultimate evil and opposition to Christ's return. Throughout the Middle Ages, the Antichrist was often depicted as a real and imminent threat. Religious leaders and scholars warned of his coming in the end times, as foretold in biblical prophecy. The fear of the Antichrist fueled apocalyptic thinking, with many medieval communities believing that the world was on the verge of collapse. This period saw the emergence of numerous false prophets and would-be antichrists, many of whom claimed to have divine insight or even special powers. The Church used the image of the Antichrist to bolster its authority, framing itself as the protector against the forces of evil. The Reformation in the 16th century brought new interpretations of the Antichrist, especially among Protestant reformers like Martin Luther and John Calvin. These figures viewed the Pope as the Antichrist, an embodiment of false authority that had led the Church astray. The rise of Protestantism marked a shift in how the Antichrist was perceived, transforming it from a singular, future figure to a symbol of corrupt systems within the Church. In the modern era, the figure of the Antichrist has become more symbolic. While traditional religious interpretations remain influential, many people see the Antichrist as representing broader societal forces, political figures, ideologies, or even technological advancement. The idea of the Antichrist has evolved to fit the anxieties of contemporary culture, taking on new forms as society grapples with issues like totalitarianism, materialism, and digital manipulation. Understanding the historical context of the Antichrist allows us to see how this figure has been adapted to reflect humanity's fears and hopes. From a symbol of evil to a warning of societal decay, the Antichrist continues to evolve, challenging us to recognize and confront the deceptions that may be lurking within our own time. The Antichrist has long been a central figure in religious texts, but in modern culture, this enigmatic character has evolved into a symbol of fear, power, and deception that transcends traditional boundaries. From films and literature to music and video games, the figure of the Antichrist has become a potent archetype, capturing the imagination of audiences worldwide. However, what's particularly intriguing is how the portrayal of this figure in modern media often reflects contemporary societal anxieties and the growing sense of disillusionment with traditional systems of power. In Hollywood, the Antichrist has taken on various forms, often depicted as a charismatic and manipulative figure. Movies like The Omen, 1976, and Constantine, 2005, showcase the character as a figure of impending doom, shaping apocalyptic narratives that engage viewers with both fear and fascination. This portrayal speaks to our collective anxiety about the unknown and the potential for powerful forces beyond our control to shape the future. The Antichrist in these films is often shown as someone who has infiltrated society unnoticed, gradually undermining the established order and pushing humanity toward its downfall. Literature has followed a similar trend. Books like the Left Behind series by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins have popularized a modern interpretation of the Antichrist, turning him into a politically savvy and influential leader who deceives the masses. These portrayals resonate with readers who are skeptical of political corruption, global power structures, and the erosion of truth in the media. The modern Antichrist is not just a religious figure, he is a reflection of our growing distrust in those who hold power over us. Beyond traditional media, the Antichrist also finds its place in the music industry, where artists use the figure to challenge societal norms and provoke thought. Metal bands like Black Sabbath and Marilyn Manson have adopted the symbol of the Antichrist to express rebellion against authority, exploring themes of alienation, defiance, and resistance. In this context, the Antichrist becomes more than just a religious or mythological figure. He symbolizes a revolt against societal expectations and an exploration of the darker sides of human nature. The Antichrist in modern culture often represents a fear of the loss of control, whether it's through political manipulation, technological advancements, or shifts in social values. What's most fascinating is how this figure, once confined to religious texts and doomsday prophecies, has become a vehicle for examining deeper questions about the nature of power, deception, and the fragility of human institutions. As society grapples with these existential questions, the Antichrist continues to serve as a mirror reflecting our greatest fears and our search for meaning in a rapidly changing world. To understand the rise of the Antichrist, it's essential to first grasp the key characteristics that define this figure across religious and cultural narratives. Described as the ultimate deceiver, the Antichrist is prophesied to appear in the final days, presenting a false image of peace, prosperity, and salvation, while manipulating humanity for his own gain. Identifying the traits of this deceptive force is crucial in recognizing how it may manifest in today's world. One of the most significant characteristics of the Antichrist is his ability to deceive. In both Christian and non-Christian traditions, the Antichrist is often portrayed as a master of persuasion, skilled at bending the truth and distorting reality. This deception isn't just about lies. It's about creating a vision so convincing that it draws people away from righteousness, causing them to follow him blindly. Today, this trait might manifest in the form of charismatic leaders who captivate audiences with promises of utopian futures, but in reality, only serve their own agendas. The Antichrist is also known for his charisma and charm, often appearing as an appealing and persuasive figure. He is described as someone who can unite people across divisions, offering them hope and comfort in a time of chaos. This alluring quality is evident in modern society in the form of influential personalities who can sway public opinion, often leading millions to adopt ideologies that seem righteous on the surface, but are ultimately self-serving. Whether through political power, media influence, or technological advancements, the Antichrist-like figure gains followers by appealing to their deepest desires and fears. Another defining characteristic is his rejection of true faith and the embrace of counterfeit spirituality. The Antichrist does not openly challenge belief in God. Instead, he distorts it, offering a diluted version of truth that seems close enough to the real thing to be deceiving. This can be seen today in the rise of false prophets and deceptive religious movements that present themselves as bearers of divine truth, but ultimately lead followers away from authentic spirituality. Finally, the Antichrist's destructive nature is a hallmark of his character. His ultimate goal is to destroy, not just in the physical sense, but in the moral and spiritual realms. Whether through fostering division, spreading hate, or manipulating global systems, the Antichrist aims to destabilize the foundations of society and truth. Today, this may manifest in the growing tensions between nations, the erosion of moral values, or the manipulation of economic and social systems to serve the few at the expense of the many. In recognizing these characteristics, deception, charisma, false spirituality, and destruction, it becomes clear that the Antichrist isn't simply a singular individual. Rather, he represents a force of manipulation and corruption, that can take on many forms in our world today. The key lies in understanding the underlying patterns and staying vigilant to the deceptive tactics that threaten to mislead us. The concept of the Antichrist, traditionally seen as a singular figure of ultimate evil in religious prophecies, has long been associated with the end of days and the final deception of mankind. However, in the context of global politics, this figure may not always appear as a literal being, but rather through the actions, ideologies, and power dynamics that shape our world. Throughout history, certain political leaders have been perceived as embodying the traits of the Antichrist, with their manipulative strategies, authoritarian tendencies, and disregard for truth. But in today's interconnected world, the influence of global politics has become far more complex, and the Antichrist may manifest in a much more subtle and insidious manner. One of the most defining characteristics of the Antichrist in eschatological terms is the ability to deceive entire nations, often through charisma and persuasive rhetoric. Politicians throughout history have exhibited similar traits, convincing millions to follow their agendas under the guise of progress, security, or national interest. Leaders who rise to power by preying on people's fears and desires for control and stability can easily mirror the role of the Antichrist, manipulating their followers into supporting destructive policies disguised as solutions. Moreover, the manipulation of information and mass media plays a central role in the global political landscape, and this is where the Antichrist-like influence becomes even more apparent. In the age of social media, disinformation campaigns, and propaganda, truth is increasingly difficult to discern. Governments, corporations, and interest groups have learned to shape public opinion, creating narratives that serve their interests, even at the cost of human lives, freedoms. The ability to control the narrative and manipulate perception is a critical tool for any power-hungry figure, and a hallmark of the Antichrist's deception. Additionally, the rise of globalism and the interconnectedness of the world, through trade, technology, and international organizations, has led to a more centralized form of governance. While globalization can promote cooperation and peace, it also creates opportunities for central figures or groups to wield immense power. The Antichrist in this scenario would not be an individual leader, but rather a system that consolidates authority, erodes individual freedoms, and imposes one-size-fits-all solutions, all while presenting itself as the path to salvation. The connection between the Antichrist and global politics ultimately revolves around the corrupting influence of power. When leaders prioritize their own agendas at the expense of humanity, when truth becomes malleable, and lies are promoted as facts, the very essence of the Antichrist comes to life, subtly, yet undeniably guiding society toward darkness. The Antichrist may not be a figure waiting to rise in the future, but a force already at work in the global political system, manipulating the course of human history. In an age where technology permeates every aspect of our lives, the question arises, could the very tools we use to connect, learn, and evolve be paving the way for a modern-day Antichrist? While this figure is traditionally associated with spiritual deception and manipulation, the rapid evolution of technology suggests that it might not just be a religious or political force that leads humanity astray, but a technological one. Consider the sheer scale of influence that technology wields today. We live in a world dominated by artificial intelligence, social media algorithms, surveillance, and data manipulation. These systems are not merely tools. They shape our perceptions, guide our decisions, and in some cases dictate our beliefs. The Antichrist, according to prophecy, is known for his ability to deceive the masses, creating illusions that draw people away from truth. In many ways, modern technology mirrors this ability. Through targeted advertisements, fake news, and social media echo chambers, technology can manipulate what we see, hear, and believe. It creates an artificial reality that can be more convincing than the world around us, much like how the Antichrist is predicted to create a counterfeit version of truth. Artificial intelligence (AI) is perhaps the most insidious example. While AI holds immense potential for good, helping with medical research, advancing automation, and enhancing our lives, it also presents a risk. Algorithms can be designed to control what we read, how we interact with others, and even influence our voting behavior. With deep learning models capable of creating hyper-realistic fake news or manipulating online content, the line between reality and illusion becomes increasingly blurred. The more we rely on AI-driven systems to define our worldview, the easier it becomes for powerful forces to exploit these tools for manipulation. turning our faith in technology into an instrument of control. Moreover, technology is also contributing to a new form of spiritual and existential deception. The rise of transhumanism, the idea of merging humans with machines, raises questions about the essence of humanity. Some proponents of this movement argue that humanity can be enhanced through technological advancements, leading to a post-human future where the boundaries between man and machine are erased. Is this vision of the future a new kind of deception? An attempt to redefine what it means to be human and to offer immortality through technology? This quest for artificial perfection could easily serve as a modern parallel to the Antichrist promises of power and eternal life. In many ways, the technological forces shaping our world today represent a powerful, almost invisible force, much like the Antichrist of prophecy. As we continue to embrace these advancements, we must ask ourselves, are we moving toward a future of greater freedom and understanding? Or are we unwittingly walking into a world of control, deception, and spiritual erosion? The modern-day Antichrist may not wear horns or carry a trident. He may simply sit behind the screen, directing the flow of information, shaping our beliefs and controlling the narrative. In a world increasingly shaped by technological advancements and the constant flow of information, spiritual deception has found new ground to thrive. While many might still associate deception with ancient rituals or foreboding figures, modern spiritual deception has evolved to become far more subtle and insidious. It's no longer just about false prophets or misguided religious leaders. Today, deception is embedded in the very fabric of our social structures and digital space. One of the most potent forms of spiritual deception in the modern world comes from the proliferation of ideologies that appear to offer enlightenment, but instead mislead and manipulate. The rise of self-help movements, pseudo-spiritual teachings, and even some modern religious leaders promotes ideas that sound promising on the surface: inner peace, fulfillment, a deeper connection to the universe, but often lack grounding in any authentic spiritual tradition or truth. These movements tend to focus on material success or personal empowerment, while neglecting the deeper, more transformative aspects of spirituality. Social media and digital platforms have become key players in this deception, providing a stage for influencers and gurus who build massive followings under the guise of spiritual guidance. With millions of followers, these figures often prey on the vulnerable, offering solutions that are grounded in personal gain, not in the wisdom or teachings that lead to true growth. The algorithm-driven world of social media promotes the sensational over the substantive, amplifying voices that seek validation, fame, and influence rather than genuine spiritual depth. Another form of modern spiritual deception comes from the blending of secularism with spirituality. In today's hyper-connected world, many are seeking something beyond traditional religious institutions, but don't necessarily turn to deeper spiritual roots. Instead, they latch onto convenience, spiritual practices that fit neatly into their busy lives without asking them to challenge their beliefs or lifestyle. Mindfulness, yoga, and meditation, though rooted in ancient traditions, are often divorced from their original context and teachings, becoming simply another form of self-improvement or mental fitness. While these practices can offer real benefits, without a deeper understanding of their spiritual origins, they can easily become tools for personal gain or shallow peace, masking the deeper inner work that true spirituality calls for. Moreover, in a society obsessed with individualism, spirituality is often commodified. Many people look for quick fixes to their spiritual hunger, seeking answers in surface-level teachings that promise instant relief, but fail to offer long-term transformation. This commercialized version of spirituality feeds into the culture of consumption, where self-worth and fulfillment are tied to acquiring the latest spiritual trends or products, rather than cultivating a deep personal connection to truth and growth. Spiritual deception in the modern world is a reflection of a deeper crisis, a loss of authentic connection to what truly matters. In a time when information is at our fingertips, discernment has never been more critical. Navigating the maze of modern spirituality requires not only skepticism, but also a return to deeper, time-tested wisdom that helps distinguish truth from illusion. As the world continues to evolve, the concept of the final deceiver, often linked with the rise of the Antichrist, becomes more relevant than ever. For many, the idea of a singular figure emerging to manipulate and control the masses can seem far-fetched. However, with the rapid changes in technology, politics, and spirituality, it's crucial to prepare for the possibility that deception is already infiltrating every layer of society. The question is, how can we recognize the signs and protect ourselves from falling victim to this influence? The first step in preparing for the final deceiver is cultivating discernment. This means developing the ability to separate truth from manipulation in the age of information overload. The constant barrage of news, social media, and digital content often distorts reality. Critical thinking has never been more essential. Learning to question narratives, especially those presented by authority figures or institutions, is key. The Antichrist, as portrayed in religious texts, often comes as a figure of false light, offering solutions and promises that sound too good to be true. In today's world, it's easy to be swayed by charismatic leaders or slick messaging that taps into our deepest fears and desires. But discernment empowers individuals to look past surface-level charm and identify the underlying agendas at play. Another aspect of preparation is spiritual grounding. Whether or not one subscribes to specific religious beliefs, a solid sense of personal values and ethics can provide a strong foundation. The final deceiver's power lies in its ability to distort moral clarity, leading people to compromise their integrity or abandon their principles for the sake of convenience or safety. Having a strong spiritual or philosophical anchor, whether through faith, personal reflection, or community values, helps guard against this erosion of core beliefs. Building community is also a vital part of preparedness. In times of crisis or uncertainty, people often turn to others for support. A connected, well-informed community acts as a safeguard against manipulation. When people share knowledge, insights, and diverse perspectives, they become harder to deceive. Isolation, on the other hand, is the perfect breeding ground for misinformation and control. By nurturing relationships with those who challenge and encourage you to think critically, you strengthen your resilience against the subtle tactics of deception. Finally, staying informed about global trends, political movements, and technological advances is crucial. Understanding how these forces intersect and influence each other will help you anticipate the methods used by those in power to manipulate or deceive. Technology, for example, plays a massive role in shaping public opinion and controlling information. The rise of artificial intelligence, deepfakes, and surveillance tools could provide the perfect means for a deceptive figure to manipulate reality on a massive scale. Being aware of these developments and their potential impact allows you to better understand the forces at work and prepare to act accordingly. In the end, preparing for the final deceiver is about equipping yourself with the tools to see beyond the surface. Stay grounded in your values, and remain vigilant against the forces that seek to control and manipulate. Only through awareness, spiritual clarity, community, and knowledge can we hope to recognize and resist the deception that may one day be thrust upon us. As we've explored throughout this video, the concept of the Antichrist and the final deceiver isn't just a relic of ancient prophecy. It's an idea that still holds relevance in our modern world. With the rise of political manipulation, technological control, and spiritual deception, it's clear that the lines between good and evil, truth and lies, are becoming increasingly blurred. The Antichrist may not appear in the form we've been conditioned to expect, but the traits of this final deceiver are already present in the systems, ideologies, and leaders that shape our world today. By understanding the signs and characteristics of the Antichrist, we are better equipped to recognize the subtle ways in which deception operates, whether through the manipulation of truth in the media, the rise of charismatic figures who promise false hope, or the influence of technology in shaping our perceptions. We must remain vigilant and discerning. The key to resisting the power of the final deceiver lies in our ability to think critically, remain grounded in our personal values, and connect with a community that fosters shared knowledge and understanding. In a world where information is weaponized and truth is often distorted, the preparation for such deception requires more than just awareness. It demands action. The strength to resist manipulation comes from our capacity to question, to seek truth, and to hold fast to our beliefs even when the world around us seems to be shifting in unpredictable ways. The rise of the Antichrist may be a deeply symbolic reflection of the larger forces at play in society, but it's also a call to action for each of us. It urges us to confront the lies and challenges that threaten our moral and spiritual integrity, and reminds us that our greatest defense is a well-informed, critically thinking, and spiritually grounded society. In the end, the fight against the final deceiver isn't just about identifying one figure. It's about recognizing the subtle forces of deception and manipulation in all their forms, and ensuring we are prepared to stand firm in the face of them. The battle for truth begins with each of us, and the more prepared we are, the less power the deceiver will have over us.